Changing minds one thought at a time.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Akina.
Good evening. How are you doing, Jessica?
I am doing awesome, and I am so excited to be back with everyone on the call tonight. And thank you, Akina, for the last 3 wonderful podcasts while I was away. So some of you, may be listening in for the first time tonight and may not know what we're talking about. And some welcome back to our, loyal listeners who follow us every week. And you guys may have noticed on the last 3 podcasts, for the last week and a half, I was and I was, actually away. I was in San Diego for a celebration event for just the accomplishments that the amazing that I work with has accomplished this year. And, I was spending an entire week immersed in just personal development and listening to some amazing speakers and people who really just inspired me. And I'm excited to bring a lot of what I learned at that conference back here to you guys tonight. And, Akina and I are both committed so much to personal development. And we believe so strongly in investing in ourselves and investing in yourself. You are your greatest asset. You are your greatest investment. And, just like we do these calls and we want to motivate you, we're constantly immersing ourselves around people. We're constantly attending events and listening to podcasts and webinars to try and make ourselves better. So, thank you, everyone, for allowing me that time to grow as a person so I can help and teach everyone even more. Akina, so how's it doing down in Alabama tonight? What's it looking like over there?
Well, we had a little rain, but now it's very calm and peaceful, very nice weather right now. How about New York?
Right, very good. We seem to be having in the middle of a storm now, and if for some reason that I was to lose my reception because we are in the middle of a lightning storm, I will do our best to get that working. So let's send a prayer right now so that we don't have any technical difficulties. So when I was at my conference tonight, last week, what I noticed was that so many people, when I asked them, wow, so what is your plan? What are you working on for your goals? When are you going to get started? They had these great dreams and they had these plans, but they weren't really quite ready to implement them. They kept telling me, okay, you know what, I'm getting ready to do this. And they would make these elaborate goals, and they spent so much time figuring out what they were going to do to get started, but they never got started. And, one of the speakers at the conference, Jeffrey Combs, and, he kind of always says on his podcast, he says, you got to stop getting ready to get ready. So many people just get ready to get ready and start their goals. They don't ever actually do it. And that's what we wanted to talk about tonight. Now is the time to get started creating the life of your dreams. So, a lot of times, and we've talked about this before, people kind of have it backwards. People often think, okay, you know what, I have to do something so I can be a certain way so I can start to work on my goals or so I can have something. So, let's say that, Akina and I are professional network marketers. So let's say, okay, you know what, Akina's trying to lose weight. I'm trying to really implement my athletic status. So either one of us could say, okay, you know what, when I am an elite athlete or when I lose the weight to hit my weight goal, well, then I'm going to be a good model for the products we're using, and then I'll start my business. But that's really not how it works. You have to actually be a certain way before you achieve your goals and before you really then become that successful person. And we're here to tell you tonight that, the time is now. The time to get started is right now. Don't come up. Having a plan is wonderful, and having an outline is great. I have done a lot of studying and organization. I've done a lot of work on trying to figure out how to best organize my time and leverage my time. But the way that you start working on your goals is not always necessarily to just make this great plan and structure. It's just to go out and do it. And that's what we want to tell you. If there's something in your heart that you want to do, then just go out and do it. And, more than a step-by-step guide for getting there, the most important thing is knowing your purpose and knowing your passion. You know, Akina, I know you're big on talking about your passion and your purpose, and in your life, you know, your purpose and your passion has guided you more than anything else. So I don't know, why don't you share a little bit with us about, you know, why it's so important to know the reason you want to get started rather than knowing the steps you need to take to get started?
Well, you know inside you what makes you work, what makes you tick, what you need to do to live in your purpose. You do. You know that. And it's just a feeling. You know when you're going in the wrong direction and when you're going into the right direction. Prime example, the reason why I have my current job. I could have just sat on that call that I received. I could have just sat on it. You know, they called me and said, you know, if you're interested, we can set up an interview. I could have sat on that. I could have thought about it. I could have meditated on it, all of that. But no, I just made the phone call. It was no thought in it. I just returned the phone call, and that was it. They could have decided not to return the call. They could have decided to go with other people. That's all well and good. But I did my part. You have to go out and do your part. And that's the point. You know, when you're sitting there waiting to get ready, you're not doing your part. You're planning your part. You're not doing your part. And in order for anything to get done, action has to happen. Planning is an action, yes, but it's not execution. And your goals happen when execution happens. So that's the difference between planning it and doing it. When there's an actual action happening towards the goal, towards the purpose. And as long as we're planning, we're not executing. Does that make sense, Jessica?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, we don't want to necessarily say that planning is a bad thing. And Akina and I both are big onto planning, but planning doesn't always happen necessarily before you get started. Because if you keep waiting to get started until your plan is perfect, I mean, life changes. Every day you wake up and your situation's a little bit different. And, you know, there's never going to be a perfect time. You know, something's always going to come up. You know, your car is going to break down. You're going to, you know, a new person is going to enter into your family. You know, you may start a new job. You may lose a job. There may be a sporting event. There's always something, someone's wedding, someone's anniversary, someone's birthday party, some bill to pay this month. You know, and oftentimes people say, I'm going to start when the time is right. Well, the time is now, and there's never going to be that absolute perfect time. I mean, I'd love to share with you guys how I got started as a runner. So some of you may know that, you know, I run now, and if you've been listening to our calls, you'll know that that's been a huge purpose for me as improving my health, improving my, living my ideal body, that being able to run has been a huge motivation for me. And I often share about some of my victories and some of the lessons I learned running because, you know, you do learn a lot of lessons. I ran a half marathon actually just yesterday, and I learned a very valuable lessons about the socks I was wearing because by the time the run was over, you know, my feet were a mess. I had worn the wrong socks, and I learned a lesson. I'll never do that again. But most of the lessons that I learned, you know, really are very mental and very, you know, learning about myself and learning about perseverance. But, you know, my very first run, and some of you may think, okay, well, you know what, Jess, like you were a runner your whole life or you were running since high school, and you know, if you looked at my profile on Facebook or even on our current page, you know, there's pictures of me running. You may think that. But the truth is I decided to run this January, and, you know, less than a year ago. It was my New Year's resolution that I wanted to run. And I put it down on paper on my New Year's resolution. I always write everything down. I believe in, you know, if you write it down, it just makes it more likely it's going to happen. But I wrote down, I am going to run. So the day that I wrote that down, you know, I had really not been necessarily healthy yet. I hadn't lost a ton of weight yet. I still had weight to lose. I had never run before in my entire life. And, you know, I often joke that prior to actually running my first race, the only place I ever had run before was like from the couch to the bathroom in college days, you know, after a night of drinking. But I was completely inexperienced running. I was overweight. I didn't have the right shoes. I didn't have any equipment. I didn't know even that runners needed equipment. I didn't know what to wear. But I decided to sign up for a race. And the distances were kind of irrelevant to me. You know, I had never run down the block. And truthfully, I didn't even think I had the ability to run from the beginning of the block to the end. And, but I decided I was going to sign up. And it was a 4-mile race. This was my very first race. And it was freezing in New York. I mean, it was that Arctic vortex that, someone sent over to us. And it was, absolutely like record-breaking temperatures in New York, below freezing. And I had no idea, what I was doing. And now it's snowing outside. And you get an email. And I just signed up for the very first race that, after New Year's. So I think it was January 2nd. And many of you who live in New York may remember that day in New York. It was snowing really, really hard. I had to get up really early because I was afraid the subway would be shut down and I wouldn't be able to get into Manhattan from the Bronx where I live. So, I woke up to an email that morning saying, listen, the run, is on for people that are diehard and I think it said maybe crazy enough to have run. But they said, but listen, if you sign up for this race, we can't refund your money, but what we're going to do is count it towards, having points. So in New York City, to qualify for the New York City Marathon, you have to do 9 races and volunteer on race. They said, listen, we're going to count this for everyone, whether you come or not. We will count this race for you, and you can sign up for another race. They said, if you want to run it, come run it, but just know it's kind of dangerous outside right now. There's snow on the course. It's wet. They had water cups, but by the time the race had even started, the water was completely frozen. So there was really no water. And I remember being at that race at the start line because, I wanted to run this race. I had committed to my goal, and nothing was going to stop me. There were men, and they had beards, and they had icicles in their beards. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen because they had, been jogging to warm up. And, you see everyone running. Everyone's in their running gear. And I looked around, and I noticed that I was slightly overdressed. At the time, I had thought, I guess I was going to, maybe, snowshoeing in Alaska. I had worn, 2 pants. I wore tights, and then I wore leggings or thermal underwear, and I had on sweatpants, and I had on 2 pairs of socks, and I had on sneakers that barely fit. They were brand new sneakers I bought the night before, and they weren't even running shoes. I didn't even own sneakers, and they were just whatever. They were models, and they said running on them, and what did I know about running at the time? So I bought them. And they were slightly, my feet barely fit into them with all my socks and layers. And, and then I had on my layers of jackets. I had on this very large fleece hoodie. And then I had on a down jacket, my biggest down jacket. And I had hats and scarves and gloves and a ski mask on. And I'm looking around, and everyone else around me just had on, a windbreaker, a long sleeve shirt, and running tights and sneakers. And they looked at me like I was completely crazy. And, I had no idea what I was doing at the time. I had no idea, how to run. I didn't know I could do it. I certainly wasn't a runner. I had absolutely no training. I had never run before. But you know what? I did it. I made it across that finish line. And making it across that finish line, that was probably the best feeling of my entire life. And, since then, I've actually made it across a lot of finish lines. I, probably ran definitely more than a dozen, but probably even more races this year. And, now that I'm trained, I can tell you I wear the right gear. And most of the time, this weekend I had a little slip up, but I wear the right gear, and my times are much, much better than they were in that first race. And instead of walking most of the race, I'm running the majority of the race, and I'm faster. And I've even placed in a race recently. But, I can tell you something. I learned my lesson, and now I have a plan, and now I have training, and yes, I do a better job running, but what it really took and where it all got started was that very first run where I had no idea what I was doing. The timing was wrong. It was the most awful and absolute worst time to start running. I mean, they literally sent an email out saying you're crazy if you run today, but for those of you that are crazy enough, we'll have the run anyway. And I was one of those people who said, you know what, I'm crazy enough because I understand my passion, I understand my purpose, and I understand my why. And because I get why I want to do it, I don't need anything else. I didn't need to train. I didn't need the gear. I didn't need a plan of action. I just needed a purpose. And, for me, my purpose was that I wanted to live in my ideal body. And that purpose continues to drive me every day. And every day when I'm making choices on what I'm going to eat, or if I'm going to get out of bed and turn off that alarm clock and get up and do my prayers, meditation, and exercise before work, or just sleep an extra hour, that purpose drives me every moment of every day. And when you have a purpose and you're truly living into your purpose, it consumes you. And it just doesn't matter anymore. And I'm telling you today, if there's something that you want to do, if there's a goal that you have, and you've been saying, okay, I want to get started, but you always say tomorrow, get started today. And you know what? You don't need a plan, because if you haven't gotten started yet, you need your purpose. Because if you knew your purpose, if you knew your why, if you understood what it was that motivated you, you wouldn't be sitting here and saying, okay, I'm going to wait until tomorrow. I'm going to wait until I have a savings. I'm going to wait until I pay off my debt. I'm going to wait until I lose the weight. I'm going to wait until I'm training. Waiting is over. It is time today. The time is now that you start creating the life that you want to live.
Wow, Jessica, that was a powerful story. That was a powerful story. Thank you for sharing it with us.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'm looking at the same thing too. It is pretty ideal running conditions in New York this year, and the temperature is pretty uncharacteristically low in a lot of the races I've run. But something I'm looking forward to, those kind of gnarly races again in a few months when, it's cold and there's less people, and it's kind of become a bit exciting. But you know what? Yeah, everyone understands today. You have to find the purpose. You have to understand and find what motivates you. And it's okay, no matter what your purpose is. There's no purpose that's wrong. There's no purpose that's silly. And it doesn't matter if what my purpose is different than your purpose. There's no such thing as a bad reason to want something or a bad thing to want. It's about figuring out what you want and going to get it.
So, Jessica, do you think that your running would have been different if you had waited till better conditions?
Something, I think if I would have waited, I would have never been a runner today. I mean, really, right? If I would have said in January, okay, I'm going to be a runner this year in 2014, well, how many of us set resolutions and we set goals and they sound really great? We may really mean them at the time, but do you really think that come spring I still would have had that same motivation or reason or passion? Or, would I really have wanted to get started in April? I would have found something else to do. I could have sat here and said, okay, I'm going to wait till the temperature is right, or I'm going to wait to do my first race until I could, run a mile or run 4 miles. But you know what? It took me a long time to be able to run that distance without, needing to stop or to walk. And I would have been discouraged. I would have gotten burned out if I was waiting to be a certain way. I was waiting to reach a certain state before I just kind of jumped into my goals and jumped into my passion. But, I probably never would have got started. And that's what I want you to understand is there's never going to be that perfect time. So if you're waiting for that time, you're going to wait until the day that you die, and you're going to regret it. And that's what I want everyone to do is to understand, if you keep waiting, you're never going to do it, and you're going to regret it in the end. When the time has passed, because there's only certain windows of opportunity, like Akina said, she got that phone call, she reacted right away. She may not have known all that information, but she learned it later. And what if she lost her window of opportunity? None of us know what tomorrow holds for us. And, we don't know if tomorrow is going to be too late. We don't know what's going to happen. And, we pray that everyone has tomorrow and that, nothing happens to any of us and we have long, healthy lives. But we don't want to put ourselves in a position where at the end of our life we're looking back and saying, man, I wish I would have acted on this. I wonder what it would have been like if I would have taken, a risk and I would have done my dreams. And I'm here to tell you today, you know what? The biggest risk is not taking a step when you're not ready or when you feel like you're not ready. The biggest risk is not starting when the time is not right. The biggest risk is never starting and looking back later and wondering what if. What would my life have been like if I would have started? If I would have created the life of my dreams? If I would have left out on faith and I would have just taken that chance on me, what would my life have been like? Never finding that out, that's the biggest risk you could ever take. Because you have the ability to create something beautiful. Every one of us is endowed with this amazing power and gift to be whoever we want to be, to create whatever we want, and we don't have to accept the life we're living. We don't need to have these small, tiny visions of what our life can look like. We can be anyone. There's nothing we can't do. The only limit to who we can be is what we can see. But if you never actually start, if you don't take that image, you don't take that perception, and like Akina says, you don't act on it, it's always going to be a vision. It's always going to be an image. It's always going to be a meditation. And you know what? When you get up off your knees, when you're praying and you get up off your knees, you need to get out and you need to do it. Whatever you ask God for, if you say what does the Bible says, knock and it shall be given, ask and you shall receive. But you know what? It's not going to just materialize magically. God is not a magician. You need to act on it. So if you say to God, I want to be a runner, or you say, I want to be healthy, I want to get my doctorate. If you say, I want to be a millionaire, I want to be able to travel, I want to give this to my family, I want my kids' education paid for, I want to live in a new house. Well, you know what? God is not going to pick you up and transplant you to a new house. You actually need to go to the bank. You need to get a real estate agent. There's things you need to do. So you know what? You just don't sit there and say, okay, you know what, I'm going to meditate this on it. Vision boards are wonderful. Affirmations are wonderful. We talk about how, Keenan and we talk about using them every day, and I use my vision boards every day. Today I carry my vision boards with me in my planner, and I have vision boards for every single month. And today, I was at a family barbecue, and there was things that were tempting me to eat that are not part of my typical diet. And I literally went into my purse, I took out my vision board, and I saw pictures of the medals for the races I'm training for next month. And I said, I want to wear that medal, so I'm not going to eat this. And you know what? It takes action. It's not just a pretty picture. And the life of your dreams is not this pretty picture in your head. It is a reality that you can create, but you have to do something to create it. And, stop waiting. Stop waiting for someone else to do something. Stop waiting for someone else to hand something to you. Just go get it. Just do it and do it now.
Yes, I totally agree. You never know when the opportunity is the last opportunity. It's no reason for you to not step out on it, especially when you know that you'll be good at it. You know that that's what you've been wanting. So take the opportunity. Take the chance. Go for it. Because you don't want to regret, like Jessica said. I know that feeling. There's been many opportunities that I have just let slip through my fingers because I wasn't ready. I didn't have the time. It wasn't right for me at this particular time. And those opportunities never came back. And now I'm wondering what if? We speak from personal experience. We know how you're feeling, and it's okay. It's okay to have doubt and fear, but the difference is don't let the doubt and fear stop you. Let the doubt and fear empower you. And when you let that happen, that's when you're going to go for gold. What do you think on that, Jess?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And, you said, fear and doubt, don't let them stop you. Fear and doubt are not real, because what are you fearing? If it hasn't happened yet, it's not real. You're fearing something that doesn't exist. If you're feeling failure, well, failure hasn't happened. So if you're saying that you're afraid, well, if I'm afraid if I start, I'm not going to do it, well, where is that coming from? You're completely making it up. That's just something you're creating. And you know what? Why not create something more beautiful? Why not? If you can create fear, if you can create doubt, then you can create the life you want to live. Because neither event has happened yet. So whichever one that you choose to create is really up to you. And, just like Akina, I've had times in my life where I'm sitting back and saying, what if I would have acted upon it? What if I would have done it? But let me tell you something. I'm not saying what if ever again. And I vow from this moment on, and I'm saying this publicly on air, and I know there's people listening tonight from all over the world and people who will listen to this in podcast time, and I'm telling you from now on in the rest of my life, I will never, ever say what if again. I will never have that as a regret, because if there's something I want, I'm going to invest in me, I'm going to believe in myself, and I'm going to find out what I'm capable of. And Akina, can you get behind me on that?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. We have a lot of things that we're going to do. You have a lot of things that you're going to do, and all you have to do is do it. You are the owner of your destiny. If you want to make it happen, Create it now. Start today. Make it happen. I'm behind you totally,
Yeah.
Jessica.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you heard it. Akina and I are vouching on the air in front of all of our listeners that we will never say what if again. And, I hope that some of you tonight listening to this call, can make that same promise to yourself. That if you want to make it public, you can promise it on our Facebook wall, too. But, whenever you're hearing this call. So, if you listen to this in a year from now and you just write on our Facebook wall, I promise to always, to never say what if again. We'll know what you're talking about and we'll like that comment. But, it's almost at that time, mid-hour when we end our calls. But the last thing I kind of want to say before we close tonight or before I finish my kind of segment tonight is that it's sometimes, we fear or we think it's going to be hard when we get started. And I'm here to tell you it's really not usually as hard as you think. Once you actually get to that place of action, you find that it was really the anticipation, it was really the procrastination, it was really, the fear of, like as the kids, the fear of getting started. That was kind of the worst part. And once you actually get on that journey, the rest is pretty easy, and it's probably a lot easier than you thought it would be. So, I want you tonight, whatever it is that you want to do, when you finish listening to this call, do one thing to make that vision, to make that goal transform from an image in your head to the reality of what you're living. Whether or not it's making a phone call, registering for a class, if you want to go back to school, or registering for Run if I've inspired you to race, even if you, like me, feel like you may not have been capable at the moment. Whatever it is that you want to do, just go outside and take a step to make it happen. Akina, is there anything you want to add before we close our call tonight?
Well, yes, we have a special announcement today. We want to let everybody know that we are now on Stitcher Radio. So if you are a Stitcher fan, you have it in your car, why don't you just listen to Changing Minds Online on that wonderful ride to and from work? We are there, and we are 24 hours a day to motivate and inspire you. We're also on ChangingMindsOnline.com, iTunes, Podomatic, and you can reach us on Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, Twitter, and Google+.
Very good. And I just wanted to give a special shout out and gratitude for Akina for setting all that up, because Akina can tell you that I actually had to call her today from my personal profile, and I asked her how to set up a pinup. So if it wasn't for Akina, we wouldn't be on anything. So thank you, Akina, for getting that done and letting all of our audience to reach us from whichever way that they prefer the most. And thank you for doing that. But on that note. Yeah, absolutely. On that note, guys, I'm going to sign off now. God bless everyone. Have a great night. Thank you for calling in and taking the time to listen to this podcast. If you're listening in podcast time, we love you. Have a great day and get started on creating your life.
Goodbye.